Today we're taking a look at our updated patch 13.10 tier list and how all of those changes have affected all the best and worst champions. There's some obvious winners and some surprising losers, so let's break it all down and see what you guys should be playing. Starting off in the top lane as always, and in the S tier we have Akshan, Fiora, Jax, Kled, Malphite, Olaf, Ornn, Poppy, Rengar and Riven. Ornn remains king of the tanks up top, and although we expected him to get a bit weaker this patch, it just wasn't the case. And he's still up there with the big boys and girls in the S tier. Ornn just offers so much with his long range initiation, his consistent laning and his fantastic gank and fight setup. So if you are enjoying Ornn and you're having good success with him, just keep playing him. Aatrox is better than you'd think right now and has slowly been getting back to his best. When this champion is good, he can be very difficult to beat, especially if he does get ahead early game, as he can easily snowball out of control. He is a demon when it comes to taking on more than he can chew, always having the opportunity to outplay his enemies against all of the odds. So if you do play against an Aatrox who's in control, just think twice before ganking him, because if it goes wrong, the game could literally be over. If you do want to keep up to date with the best Aatrox builds and runes, then click the first link in the description to head to his champion page. On there you can see the most popular builds, the highest performing builds, or even the builds the pros are using, and import them straight into your client and champion select with just one click, so give it a go. Olaf is still face rolling top laners one game at a time, and there's not too many better champions you can play in the top lane that can carry quite as hard as this guy can. His early game damage allows him to easily accumulate a massive lead, and then he just farms that matchup on repeat. His ultimate makes him so difficult to shut down, and before you know it, he's sprinting into backlines without any counterplay and ruining all of his enemies' day. So if you have forgotten about the Viking recently, it's probably time to pick him back up again. Fiora returns to the S tier after proving that she's still got what it takes this patch. The newly buffed Triforce has given her a new lease of life, but you've also got a variety of old options in different matchups and drafts like Sundra and of course Gore Drinker. Fiora is the definition of a split pushing bruiser hellbent on side laning until the sun goes down. So if you enjoy that playstyle of dominating lane, outplaying ganks and tearing through towers, crack on. Akshan's not exactly got any weaker this patch and is still in a fantastic spot despite not being as popular as a lot of the more consistent top lane choices. Stormrazor into Ghostblade seems to be his highest performing build at the moment, and the damage alongside the movement with this setup is literally insane. Seriously though, try keeping hold of him when he's got double movement speed steroids and those swings as well. The roams, the stealth, the damage, the cleanups and the 1v9 devastation. Akshan 1 tricks are definitely not missing out this week. Over to the jungle now then, and in the god tier we have Rengar and Kha'Zix. In the S tier we have Amumu, Evelynn, Fiddlesticks, Hecarim and Jarvan. It really is Rengar's and Kha'Zix's playground in the jungle right now though. These picks were both already in the top tiers, but the changes and buffs to assassin items have just made them simply unbelievable. Yumu's Ghostblade is completely broken on these two choices, and their crazy high ban rate just shows how dominant they really are. Kha'Zix's evolutions, leaps and insane isolated burst damage allow him to 1v5 so easily once he gets fed. The movement speed from Ghostblade in tandem with the stealth on his ultimate is just brutal, and it means he can appear all over the place and one-shot his enemies before they can even react. Rengar is pretty similar too, but obviously more focused on playing around those brushes. And then you get your ultimate and zoom around the map and literally one-shot enemy carries before they can even consider pressing that stopwatch. The damage is absolutely bonkers, so if you haven't been playing either of these two assassins yet, why not? Amumu is also in a great spot too with the buffs to Abyssal Mask, which just works so perfectly alongside his passive. With Demonic Embrace, Evan Shroud and Abyssal Mask, you deal some absolutely ridiculous damage to entire teams with your ultimate. Other champions that were already strong like Evelynn, Fiddlesticks and Jarvan remain up there in the top tiers despite not really receiving any changes to their items this patch. However, some up and coming picks like Graves and Neeko have really started to climb the ranks. Graves has definitely seen an improvement in his success with the item changes to Ghostblade along with Collector as well, as this is a pretty nasty combination. I'm sure you've also seen plenty of Neeko recently, and it's actually pretty damn hard to play against. You genuinely have to count those minion waves every single time, because if you forget about her for even for a second, you're probably all gonna die. One thing we didn't really expect though is the fall of other certain champions like Master Yi and Bel'Veth. This pair's win rates have tanked massively and they've fallen super short, which honestly we did not see this coming. Despite those Rageblade changes, there's just too many better options at the moment. So until this changes, unfortunately these guys just aren't as good as you might have thought. That being said though, a fed Yi can still 1v9 in the right comp, so be careful. Moving into the mid lane now, and in the S tier we have Ahri, Anivia, Annie, Aurelion Sol, Cassiopeia, Fizz, Neeko, Pantheon and Talon. Everybody that was already strong is still just as strong, which is exactly what we expected. With no changes to Mage's itemization this patch, it was pretty obvious that Annie, Aurelion Sol, Cassiopeia and Anivia would all still remain top choices to play. However, the great thing is there's now a bunch of new picks to play as well, and yes, you guessed it, those assassins are back. Talon is definitely the biggest winner though, with the new items allowing him to genuinely cause havoc in every single game. He does have a bit of a niche playstyle that does take a bit of getting used to, but if you can exploit those strengths of Talon, you can literally hard carry every single time, whether that's dominating the lane matchup or just roaming until your legs fall off. Kiana and Zed are also both great choices who've both seen massive improvements this week too, but they aren't quite as insane as a good Talon is at the moment. We were tempted to move these two up to the S tier too, but Talon stats are just that much better. Definitely watch out for this lot though. Fizz is a very strong choice as well, and despite nothing really changing for his items this week, the fact that there's a lot more people experimenting with melee matchups, it just makes him so much less punishing in general. Fizz can destroy certain lanes with his all-in potential, whether they are a squishy artillery mage or a bursty short-ranged assassin. So if you haven't played Fizz yet, here's a reminder to give him a go. Ahri is back to her best again, as she's been having fantastic and consistent results over recent weeks. Her mobility with her ultimate, her catch potential, burst and snowball threat and everything else make her such a complete mid laner. And with such a huge variety of matchups to play against, she's such a safe bet to go for in almost every single game. She offers a ton of ways to influence games, and if you forget about her for even one fight, all it takes is one good moment for her to catch straight back up again and do the things that she does best. So if you do enjoy Ahri, keep playing. Despite Katarina's immensely high ban rate and play rate, she's actually not winning that many games. Now we think this will stabilize over the next few weeks as people figure out what actually is her best itemization path, because right now Katarina players are experimenting in every single game and it's all just a bit chaotic. Despite not being very consistent, she will always remain a scary choice in the right hands though, especially so with the right setup, so be careful. Down to those AD carries then, and this is where a huge amount of the changes were aimed at. However, the meta didn't quite go as everyone had planned. In the God tier we have Karthus, Kog'Maw and Jhin. In the S tier we also have Ezreal, Lucian and Twitch. So everybody thought that Rageblade and hybrid builds would be the most broken items in this patch, but in actual fact it's all about Stormrazor and Gale Force. And with these two items, so many picks are completely and utterly busted. It's safe to say the biggest winners were Jhin and Lucian. Jhin is easily one of the best AD carries and best champions in the entire game at the moment, as his itemization literally allows him to outdamage pretty much everything else he sees. Jhin has always had decent damage, but the sheer mobility he has at the moment is just a bit absurd. And he can zoom around teamfights, pop in and out, and deal a crazy amount of burst to all types of enemies. The power spike with only 1 or 2 items is probably higher than it's ever been before, and the fact that you can play him into almost any draft with any support just makes him such a versatile and consistent choice to go for. Lucian is also popping off right now for pretty similar reasons. The power spikes with 2 items, the burst damage and the mobility just make him impossible to deal with, and if you get him alongside a Melio, this duo combo is completely broken. Lucian already has solid mobility with his E-dash being available so often, but when you add in that Gale Force and the movement speed boost from Stormrazor, it's just a bit crazy to say the least, and he can be so hard to get hold of during teamfights. And when you combine that with his burst damage and snowball threat, you really can see why he's so good. Speaking of unstoppable, Aphelios is for the first time in a long time up to the A tier. Now his win rate still doesn't look that appetizing, but the fact it's around 50% for the first time in years honestly speaks for itself. Now this champion definitely does take a bit more practice to get your head around, but once you get the hang of him, you quickly understand just how crazy he can be in the right fights. The AoE burst damage, the constant poke, the kiting, the splash damage, the burst, there really is so much you can do and achieve on Aphelios if you get it right. So if you do know what you're doing, he's a top choice. Kog'Maw is definitely up there with the best though, and to be honest he was already strong after recent buffs, but now he's just insane. Kog'Maw gains so much damage to all types of targets with just 1 or 2 items down, and the new Rageblade when combined with Runar's is honestly all he needs to start pumping out some ridiculously big damage numbers. If you manage to pick Kog'Maw alongside enchanters who can keep him alive, he can win games and fights so easily. There were some unfortunate losers this week too though in this patch with Kalista, Vayne, Ashe and Sivir. All of these picks just didn't really gain anything from the item changes, and we definitely expect some buffs for them over the next few weeks. Now in the right games and comps they still are playable, but we've moved them down to the C tier for now as their win rate since this patch dropped is just nothing to write home about. Let's see what Riot have planned for this lot. Finally, let's take a look at those supports then, and in the God tier we have Melio and Janna. In the S tier we have Annie, Rakan, Senna and Sona. Not too much really changed in the world of the supports this week aside from a lot of minor tweaks to items as well as a brand spanking new one in Echoes of Helia, which as we mentioned last week it is kind of similar to old items like Athene's Unholy Grail. Basically all of the supports that were already broken have got even more broken, with Melio and Janna easily being the best supports in the game in solo queue. Melio really does take the mantle for the king of the supports right now though. His utility is just unmatched and the amount he offers for such little effort is just a bit unbelievable. The range on his W, the shields, the heals, the burning damage from his passive alone can make him bannable in lane, but then you factor in his game-changing ultimate and you quickly see why he's just so good. Melio is currently packing a whopping 25% ban rate now at higher ranks, and this does not seem to be slowing down anytime soon. So it may be a bit hard to actually pick it, but when he does slip through that champion select unbanned, enjoy the freelo while it lasts. Nami is riding the wave back up the tier list after being pretty underwhelming for the last few months. She's the classic jack of all trades support, and with the right AD carry she can be brutal. But recently she's just lacked the same amount of impact that some other supports can offer, and when it comes to matchups there's been a lot of difficult lanes. This patch though, we've moved her back up to the A tier, so let's see how she fares over the next few weeks. Lucian is viable again, which means Nami is instantly better, but she also offers a lot with other AD carries too. The new support item has made a good amount of difference, and when combined with Imperial Mandate, it can be a seriously strong combination. So give it a go if you haven't already. Unfortunately though, Karma didn't really rise as we'd expected, and she's still just not really having the best of seasons. There's so many supports that just do her job so much better right now, and we do expect some buffs to come her way sometime soon. She is a very difficult champion to balance though, as she's simple in concept but can offer way too much when she's strong. The sustain from a W, the CC, the shields and the poke all come together to form a very potent kit. However, at the moment she's just not quite there compared to her more broken supporting peers. She is one to keep an eye out for, but for the time being, she's going to sit in the B tier. And on that note, that's going to bring us to the end of our patch 13.10 updated tier list video. We hope you are having a blast so far this patch and farming that free LP just like I am. Leave us a comment below and let us know which champion you guys are playing the most this patch so far. Rengar is currently what I'm having the most fun with when it's not banned. And honestly, it does kind of feel like I'm cheating. It is just that broken. Don't forget to check out Mobalytics and download our desktop app before you go to find all the best builds, runes and counter picks for every single champion in every single lobby. GG easy. Thanks for watching guys, and as always, take care.